Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for Promoting the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately named IPA-USA. IPA-USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. So as part of our efforts to promote play, we're happy to introduce our Porch Play Chats, and these are conversations that focus on a range of topics from experts who are passionate about play just as much as we are. So you can find the latest Porch Play Chats and learn more about IPA USA on Facebook or on Instagram, or by visiting our website at IPAUSA.org. So I'm Deb Lawrence, the president of IPA USA, and with me on the porch is Lisa Murphy,
Hello.
one of our board members, and Kathy Fleming, one of our board members.
Hello,
she is
everybody.
our membership chair and long-term member of IPA USA. And Kathy is also the founder of Fairy Tale Town, which is the Sacramento Adventure Playground. Was that right, Kathy, or do you need to correct me?
A little bit right. Fairy Tale Town is a very old and esteemed children's play and education facility. It's been around for about 60 years. But while I was executive director there, I had the chance to initiate the Sacramento Adventure Playground, which is the first adventure playground in the Sacramento region.
Nice. Okay, so that's what we want to talk about. So what is an adventure playground? And what inspired you to do one?
Okay. Well, adventure playgrounds to me are very magical places. They're places that are child-directed, that kids have access to be able to do the kind of free play that they want to do. It's not led by an adult. They have a chance to engage in some risky play, which isn't encouraged in modern society and which is so critical to their development. I was introduced to adventure playgrounds when I was able to take a sabbatical to London, England, and I was so impressed with the adventure playgrounds that I saw there and the kind of intuitive play that kids engaged in, and the creative play and the physical play and the collaborative play that they engaged in while at the playground, that I really wanted to bring something like that home to Sacramento. And so when I came back, I, of course, shared everything I'd learned about adventure playgrounds with my board of directors and with the community. We started a Sacramento Play Coalition, which was a bunch of people like me who were advocates of play and proponents of play. And so we came up with a plan to start the adventure playground in Sacramento. We started by having pop-up adventure play days, which, as I know IPA USA does, have play days, but they're one-day celebrations of loose part play. And so we initiated that to see if there would be interest. There was tremendous interest. And so we found a location, a closed school site in a very high need area in Sacramento, where the kids had lost their playground when the school closed. And so we partnered with some other nonprofit organizations. We took it over and turned it into a neighborhood center. So one of the sister nonprofits provides family counseling to that community that lives there. The other provides writing workshops for schools and for youth and children. And so we're the ones that provide the active play component of the neighborhood center. And when we started it, we were hoping that we would get about 250,000 people to register. And we have over 1,000 people registered, and after school and on weekends to engage in this sort of free play. It's really a blast. Some of the components that we have, for example, kids at adventure playgrounds have access to real tools, so they can actually build things. And that's what most of the kids who come to our playground like. They love building things, and what they like actually also is digging. And one of the first things they did was they dug a hole then they realized if they filled it with water, they would have a mud pit. And so the mud pit has become one of the big attractions of the Sacramento Adventure Playground. Kids will play forever in the water and the mud near there. They create, they bury things and have other kids dig them up. They created a slide so that they built a little hill and then created a slide down the hill so that they could slide into the mud pit. So that's one of the activities that happens at the playground.
How hysterical.
It really is funny. And to see their faces just, light up when they are encouraged to play with mud. They love building things, and kids build everything from, huts. Everybody builds a little hut. That's kind of the rite of passage, is to build your own hut. And but so they build huts. They need their own little space, their own hidey holes that they can go to and have their alone time. They build go-karts. They take all these old things that have been discarded, and they explore with them. So there's a deconstruction zone. So kids, again, have access to real tools, and people will donate their old vacuum cleaners or tools of some sort, and kids can use screwdrivers and other hand tools to take them apart and to see how they actually work. Bicycles are another thing they like to take apart and put back together again. There's also what we call a Rec-It Center, which is not REC Rec Center, but WRECK Rec Center.
Really fun, yeah.
And it's just a bunch of old dryers. And kids, if they get frustrated, there's a hammer and a mallet there, and they can go and they can whack away at these old dryers that are useless and get rid of some of their anxiety. In this Rec-It and deconstruction zone, I remember distinctly we had a special program one day for children with disabilities. And there was one little boy who had been coming for about a month of these special days, and he had a back brace. Mm-hmm. Well, one day he came, his back brace was off. He no longer needed it. He put that thing on the deconstruction area so quickly and smashed it to smithereens.
Oh, I love it.
He was so thrilled to be rid of that, that piece of equipment that he was relying on for so long. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of an example of the type of freedom that kids get when they are able to do the things they want to do, have access to the tools they need to do that, mm-hmm. and aren't interrupted by a grown-up.
So my question is, how do you convince parents that it's okay for them to be using real tools, and how do parents respond to the mud pit? Because I can just in my head hear teachers saying, oh, parents would be so mad, they don't want them to get dirty.
We make it very plain to parents from the beginning that this is the type of play that we engage in. And so they are warned ahead of time. I should have mentioned too that we encourage parents not to stay. So in a lot of adventure playgrounds in the United States, they're considered destination playgrounds. Our adventure playground is modeled more on the European style, where it's located in a high need area where kids don't have a lot of access to play. They don't have maybe even garages that they can go to and work with their dads or moms on, or sewing rooms or things like that. So so it's a different kind of environment. So kids are dropped off by their parents. They sign in and out themselves so that they learn some personal responsibility. And the parents are, and they're registered. So if something does happen, parents are informed. But what we've noticed with the parents is this has been a very educational process for the parents. The parents, when they sit back and they see what happens, they recognize how capable their children are, and how they use reasoning for these things. For example, there was one little girl we have a tree that kids can climb at the adventure playground. We put a ladder up it. It's a big redwood tree. So they have to climb a ladder about 6 feet up to get onto the branches. And then once they are there, they're free to climb up the tree. Well, we noticed that kids who are tentative. They'll go up the ladder a little bit, but they will come back down if they don't feel safe. And they only go all the way up and get into the tree if they feel safe, unless there's a parent there. And if the parent says, do it, do it, do it, then they get up, they get stuck, they can't get down, they get terrified because they weren't ready. They were encouraged to do it. It wasn't their decision. They wanted to make their grown-up happy. And so they did something that they normally would not have done. So the parents really, I think, have learned a lot by having their children participate in this kind of free play. They learn that their kids are capable, that they learn things from playing, and that they can trust them to make good decisions.
So how would people be able to do this in their community, right? So I'm gonna start with it. You're not licensed, right?
Right.
Okay. And so when parents register, do they sign waivers?
They do. They sign a waiver. It gives all the contact information, and it clearly states this is an adventure playground. Your children have access to real tools, raw materials. They will definitely get dirty. They may get a boo-boo. And are you okay with that? And then they sign their life.
They sign their life away. That's wonderful. I like it. And then who gives you all the stuff that's on the adventure playground?
The bulk of the things that are at the adventure playground are donated items. So we get a lot of donations from construction firms who have extra pipe or lumber or whatever that they can't use, so they bring that in. We get a lot of donations from the community in general, primarily of things like art supplies. Our adventure playground is a little unique in that we do have an indoor space. We took over the area that was the kindergarten classrooms. And so we have a pretty large space that we can use for indoor play. And that is more of the artsy kind of activity. So a lot of dress up, a lot of glue and, the collaging type of projects go on in the art area. From time to time, we bring in experts who can help kids learn about different types of art or about technical things like sewing. For example, we've had a couple of donations of sewing machines, and nobody knows what the heck they are.
Right. Yeah.
And very few of us adults know how to use them anymore. So it's been fun to show kids how to use a sewing machine and make things. These two little boys once watched the sewing machine for a long, long time, and then finally they found some big pieces of felt, and they laid down, and they were twins, and each of them traced their bodies, and then they cut out 2 sheets that were the front of a shirt and the back of a shirt, sewed them together, wore them the rest of the day. It was absolutely adorable to see that. Yes.
How often, Kathy, what are the hours?
We're open after school and on Saturday. So we're open from 2:15 from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday till 6-ish, 7-ish. Our hours change depending on light. Most of the kids walk there. And so when it gets dark earlier, we close earlier so that they can walk home.
What's the youngest that you allow by themselves there?
6 years old is the youngest we allow. We started at 7 and we wanted to have it be 7. But in this neighborhood, so many of the older kids are responsible for their younger siblings that we decreased it to 6 so that we could get more participation.
Nice.
And I know adults don't interfere with the play, but what supervision is available?
So we have a play manager, a full-time play manager, and a full-time play coordinator. And they're the ones that, do safety checks every day, make sure that there are no, nails sticking out of things, and that all the structures that kids might climb on are sound. And then we have between 2 and 3 part-time play workers who help facilitate the play. We have the outdoor space and an indoor space, and we typically have 2 people indoors and 2 people outdoors, kind of monitoring things, sometimes more when we have more children in attendance.
And so how many children on a daily basis? Like do you do it year round or just during the school year?
Yeah, we do it year round, and we change our
Nice.
hours based on the season, but we're open year round.
Mhm.
And the, um, I'm sorry, what the question was, Deb.
Oh, so are you open just after school and on Saturdays, or are you open year round?
Yeah,
So,
we're open year round, but always the same hours.
okay.
But other times of the year, we do have special programs. One of the
Okay.
challenges of adventure playgrounds is because they're free. I didn't mention this.
No, that was my next question. Are they
Adventure
free?
playgrounds are free play, free of charge. And
Wow.
kids are free to come and go as they choose. So those are the 3 frees. And so this is free, and that's the hardest thing about sustaining it, is that it's a free program. So, we do write grants and get grant funding, but we've also initiated some pay per program things, so that we can help sustain the program. So in the summer months, we have camps. So we'll have adventure play camps in the morning before we open to the public. And then one of our sister organizations has conducts the free lunch program for schools in that area from 11 to 1. And so the kids can actually even stay, have lunch, and then be able to come back after the lunch to the adventure playground when we're open to the general public. So that's one of the ways that we keep, are able to sustain ourselves. You had asked how many kids come per day, and it really depends on the time of year and what else is going on in people's lives. Our average daily attendance is about 30.
That's great.
The first Saturday of every month, we hold what we call community play days. And those are the days that we allow adults to come with their children, and we allow younger children to attend as long as they are there with a grown-up. And those days, some of our bigger days have been about closer to 200 kids in attendance. Again, because it's free, parents are really, they're looking for things for their kids to do that are things like digging holes and making a mess with art supplies that aren't in their own home. As long as they're not in their own home, I think they're okay. Kids getting muddy, you can repair dirty clothes. It's harder to fill in a big mud pit in your backyard.
Wow. That just sounds like an amazing place for children to play. And what I love about it is that it's in a neighborhood where children may not have access to play.
Yeah, we like that about our adventure playground too. And we see the growth in those children. They just have tremendous growth in their self-confidence and their self-expression, and their ability to work with others. The play workers are there sort of as lifeguards. They don't get involved very often at all. They do if it becomes necessary, but typically, if left to their own devices, kids work things out. They want to play. They want to play with each other. And so they typically work things out. And that's what we've noticed time and again at the adventure playground.
Wow. Just sounds like an amazing space.
It is. Now, if you go there, you would walk in and you would say, oh my God, what a dump, because it's a junkyard. It's basically a junkyard that's organized, and that kids kind of cull through things and they find things. So to us, it looks like a junkyard, but to kids, it really is sort of a magical space where they can find things and make things. And what's hysterical, you guys, is some of the things that people donate, these kids have never seen. So for example, we got a bunch of donations of aerial antennas for TVs.
Oh yeah.
These kids, they had no idea what they were. It was like, what's this? And to see them kind of work together and what was this for? And what do you, and, they ended up, like one of them made an umbrella out of one, and another one did put it on top of one of their huts, along with a little satellite dish that was donated. And then they went the extra mile and went inside and painted a television screen inside so that, people could go in and watch TV if they needed.
So it goes back to something Lisa was saying in an earlier Porch Play Chat that, if you just take away all the toys and materials and give them space and junk and loose parts, it's amazing how they can keep themselves engaged and excited about learning.
Yeah, they really can. And it's important too, I think, to have other aspects, like, for example, I mentioned that they all make their little huts, so they have their hidey holes. We also have animals. So there's that again have been donated along with their cages. So we have a tortoise that kids love. We have a chinchilla that they adore. This time of year, we have tadpoles and have a big tank of tadpoles. A lot of these kids haven't seen tadpoles, right, and so they're fascinated by them, and they will spend hours just with a cup, getting in the water, looking at the tadpoles, pouring them back. When they turn into frogs, a lot of them adopt them and bring them home. When we took over this school site, this was about 3 years ago, it was completely barren. There wasn't a tree or a blade of grass that was alive. Since then, it's kind of come back because, we water and kids are playing and they play with water. And so it's come back, and we see a lot more wildlife. So, think bugs, kids love collecting bugs. If for example, the tortoise gets out of its enclosure, we say, okay, I should back up. We have money that kids can earn at the playground. We've learned that kids love money. And so if they're getting too messy or whatever, it's like, okay, I'll pay you $50 if you clean up this space. And they will dive in to get it done. They love earning money and having their own money. And then what they use that money for is to buy things in our, to buy supplies. So if they, want special paper or things like that, they can purchase it. So anyway, if an animal gets out, it's like $100 if you find the tortoise. And, these kids, will just, flock to everywhere to find the tortoise. So anyway, it's really is important that they, I think that they have other species besides humans there.
Oh, I agree. And so if people wanted to contact you and say, okay, we're interested in starting an adventure playground, Kathy, how would they find you?
They can email me at Fairytale Town, and that is K.A. Fleming at fairytaletown.org, or they can call me. My phone number is 916-803-5739. I learned everything the hard way, I think, in starting this adventure playground, so I'm happy to share everything I learned with people who want to do the same thing in their communities.
Well, it sounds like a magical place and one that we need more of.
Yeah, if my dreams came true, I would love to have a system of these playgrounds all over Sacramento County, because kids really do learn so much from this kind of play. And it's important lessons that, may not be able to be measured on a test, but there are things that they can use well into their adulthood.
Well, and one of the previous Porch Play Chats that we talked about were dispositions or approaches to learning, and this sounds like the perfect place to develop positive dispositions and approaches to learning.
Especially for those kinetic learners. They love, those that learn by doing. They are in their place in this facility.
Kathy, thanks so much. Lisa, anything you want to add?
Well, I know we're approaching time, but really quick, can you I know the answer to this question, but just because I want to hear you, but acknowledging perhaps just a little bit of the history of the phrase, that it's not a new idea of having adventure
absolutely. Yeah, so adventure playgrounds generated after World War II, when landscape architects noticed that kids were playing in the rubble from the war more than they were playing in these beautifully managed landscaped facilities that they had made them. And then they started watching that play, and they determined that kids were learning more from that type of play than they were in these beautifully landscaped playgrounds that they were making. And so they started adventure playgrounds. The first one was in Denmark, I want to say, and then a lady from a woman of means from England went there, saw them, and she started the system of adventure playgrounds in England. So they are not new concepts. They've been around for a long time. They're very unusual in the United States. And my assumption is that one of the reasons they're unusual in the United States is because we're sort of a litigious maybe society, and people are concerned about that aspect of things. But at any rate, they do have a long history, and primarily in Europe, and there are a number of them in Japan as well. And now a handful in the United States.
A handful. I know there's one in New York, and I want to say it's on Staten Island.
Yeah, there is.
Where parents are not allowed in. Yes, they have to watch from outside the fence.
The most pathetic thing you've ever seen. Exactly. Exactly.
Are they okay?
He has a hammer.
And that's why they have to stay outside.
Oh, it was great. I was watching a video of it, and I was like, oh my God, this is so perfect. This is so perfect. So I have one more question. I'm sorry. So you said you have play workers, and I know that in England there's a play worker sort of whole training.
Yeah.
So how did you find people who were willing and able to watch and observe before interfering?
That is the hardest thing we have to do in training wise, is to not, it's fine to play with the kids. If the kids want to play with you, that's great, play with them. But if, they just don't insert yourself and say, oh yeah, no, that's not how you do a hammer. You do it this way. Kids don't want that kind of involvement. So that is one of the more difficult trainings, is to keep the adults from directing children. I was very fortunate in that the play manager that we hired, Steve Caudle, has a long history in both running after school programs and in the construction arts. And so he got it right away. He did attend numerous trainings from Pop-Up Adventure Play and some other organizations that offer these types of trainings. But that is the biggest challenge he sees, is keeping adults from interfering and just letting the kids be.
Yeah.
We get employees through some job training programs with our sister organization that worked out of the same facility. They provide they set up jobs for youth, 18 and up. For many of them, it's their first job, and so we get them raw. We are able to train them and then use them in the adventure playground. And it's been a very helpful partnership with that organization. It gives us some affordable labor. We have the choice then to hire them on after their introductory period, and typically we do.
Nice. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Well, thank you. It's always fun to see you too.
Thanks, Kathy.
Oh, I know. So before we stop, just to view other Porch Play Chats, visit our website at IPA-USA. Thanks again to Kathy and Lisa for joining us. Until next time, thanks for listening and keep playing.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So Kathy, we're going to stop the recording.